The morning my daughter told me to sit in the car and wait, I already knew I would never see my house again. Not unless I fought back. But here is what she did not know. 3 weeks before that morning, I had stopped taking the pills. Let me take you back to exactly where this started, because if I skip ahead, you will miss the part that matters most. You will miss the part that almost broke me. My name is Harold. I am 67 years old. I spent 31 years as a civil engineer for the state of Oregon. And when I retired, I had a paid-off house in a quiet neighborhood outside of Portland, a pension that covered my needs, and what I believed was a good relationship with my daughter, Renee. She was 41. She had a husband named Greg who sold insurance and smiled too wide whenever I brought up money. They had 2 kids I adored. I babysat on weekends. I thought we were close. My wife, Diane, passed 4 years ago. Breast cancer. It came fast, and it took her fast. And after she was gone, the house felt like a place I was just storing myself in. Renee started calling more after that, stopping by with casseroles, asking how I was sleeping. I told myself this was love. I told myself my daughter was worried about her old father rattling around alone in a 4-bedroom house. I was right that she was worried. I was wrong about why. About 2 years ago, Renee started mentioning a doctor. Her friend's father had seen him, she said. He specialized in something called cognitive health for seniors. She said it so casually, slipping it in between a story about her son's soccer game and a question about whether I wanted more chicken. I told her I felt fine. She nodded and said, of course, she just wanted to make sure I was taking care of myself. She refilled my glass of water and changed the subject. 3 months later, I was sitting in that doctor's office. His name was Dr. Foss. He was a soft-spoken man with a very organized desk who asked me a long series of questions about my memory. I answered them. I thought I answered them well. I remember telling him the date, the name of the current president, the street I grew up on. I counted backwards from 100 by sevens. When I was done, he made some notes and said I was doing very well for my age, but that there were early markers he liked to monitor. He said a mild supplement regimen could help protect cognitive function going forward. He handed me a printed sheet. Renee drove me home that day. In the car, she reached over and patted my hand. She said, I just want you around for a long time, Dad. I believed her completely. The supplements came in a white bottle with a blue label. Nothing dramatic about them. They looked like every other capsule I had ever taken. I put them next to my coffee maker and took one every morning the way he instructed. Within a few weeks, I noticed I was sleeping more than usual. I figured it was age. My thoughts sometimes felt like they were arriving from somewhere far away, like a radio signal drifting in and out. I mentioned this to Renee. She said that was normal during an adjustment period. Dr. Foss had told her to expect it. She had spoken to my doctor directly. I remember thinking that was a little unusual, but she was my emergency contact. She handled things. She was organized, like her mother. I told myself it was fine. What I did not know, what I had no reason to suspect, was that Renee had been having long private conversations with a real estate attorney, that she and Greg had been running numbers on my house, which had tripled in value since I bought it in 1987. That she had begun researching power of attorney documents and what it took, legally, to establish that a parent was no longer capable of managing their own affairs. I found out about all of this not because I am clever. I found out because my neighbor, a retired school teacher named June, who has lived next door to me for 22 years, saw something that bothered her and could not keep quiet about it. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. I had been feeling particularly foggy that day and had fallen asleep in my chair after lunch. June knocked on my back door, which she sometimes did when she needed to borrow something or just wanted company. When I did not answer, she tried the handle because she knew I often left it unlocked. She found me asleep in the living room with the television on and 3 missed calls on my phone. She sat down in the chair across from me and waited for me to wake up. When I opened my eyes and saw her, she did not say hello. She said, Harold, how long have you been this tired? I told her it had been a few months. Since the supplements. She asked to see them. I brought her the bottle. She turned it over in her hands, read the label, said nothing for a long time. Then she asked me if I trusted my doctor. I said I did not know him very well. She asked me if I had ever looked him up. I said no. She set the bottle down on the coffee table between us and looked at me very carefully and said, "I want you to come with me to my house, right now." I went. What June had been doing for the past 3 weeks, ever since she had seen Greg's car parked in my driveway on a Wednesday morning, when he had no reason to be there, and when I was not home, was conducting what I can only describe as a thorough investigation. June had been a high school history teacher for 34 years. She knew how to research. She had looked up Dr. Foss. His license was valid, but his previous practice had been the subject of a complaint filed by 2 families who believed he had overdiagnosed dementia in elderly relatives, diagnoses that had then been used in legal proceedings. The complaint had been settled quietly, nothing on his record. But June had found it. She had also found the name of the real estate attorney Renee had been consulting. She had found this because she had written down the license plate of a car that had pulled up to my house one afternoon while I was napping, a car she did not recognize. She ran it through a contact she had, a retired police officer she knew from church. The car belonged to a paralegal at that attorney's office. Someone had been inside my home without me knowing. I sat at June's kitchen table and listened to all of this, and felt something that I can only describe as the floor dropping out from underneath a house that was still standing. Everything looked the same, but nothing was the same anymore. June put a cup of coffee in front of me and said, "I don't know what they're planning exactly, but I think you need to stop taking those pills, and I think you need to call your own lawyer before anything else happens." I stopped taking the pills that night. The fog did not lift immediately. It took about 9 days. 9 days of sleeping less, thinking more, remembering things with a clarity that felt almost painful after months of soft edges. By the end of the 2nd week, my mind felt like it had been returned to me after being held somewhere I could not reach. I called a lawyer. Not the one who had helped me with Diane's estate, because Renee knew him. I found a new one, a woman named Patricia, who had an office in a building downtown and who listened to everything I told her without interrupting once. When I was done, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mr. Harold, I want you to go home and behave exactly as you have been. Don't let on that anything has changed. Can you do that?" I told her I could. What followed was 6 weeks of the most difficult performance of my life. I took the empty capsules out of the blue-labeled bottle and refilled them with a B-complex vitamin I bought at a different pharmacy and paid for in cash. I took one every morning just as I always had. When Renee called, I let my words come a little slower than they needed to. When she visited, I forgot small things on purpose. Where I had put my reading glasses, what I had eaten for lunch. I watched her face when I did this. She did not look sad. She looked satisfied. That was the moment I understood fully what I was dealing with. Patricia had been busy during those 6 weeks. She had requested my full medical file from Dr. Foss and found that the notes from my appointments contained descriptions of symptoms I had never reported and had never experienced. The record showed a progression of cognitive decline that Patricia said was textbook, the kind of documentation that would be used to support a guardianship petition. She had also discovered that 3 months prior, a document had been filed with the county. A document bearing what appeared to be my signature, authorizing Renee as my financial power of attorney. I had never signed that document. Patricia brought in a handwriting expert. The expert's opinion was clear. The signature was a forgery. Now I want to pause here for a moment, because I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking about whether I wanted to believe this about my daughter. You are thinking about what it feels like to hold evidence in your hands that proves someone who held your hand at her mother's funeral was planning to take everything you had left. I want to be honest with you. I did not cry. I had already done that without knowing why. During those foggy months when something in me sensed that something was wrong even when my mind could not name it. By the time Patricia laid the handwriting report on the desk in front of me, I was past the grief. I was somewhere quieter and colder than grief. I was ready. The plan, as Patricia explained it, had 3 components. First, she filed a formal complaint against Dr. Foss with the Oregon Medical Board, attaching the analysis of the medication. which a pharmacist friend of Patricia's had tested and confirmed, contained a mild sedative compound not listed on the label. Second, she notified the county that the power of attorney document was fraudulent and placed a legal hold on any transactions related to my property. Third, she advised me to continue saying nothing to Renee and to document every interaction going forward. I bought a small digital recorder that fit in my shirt pocket. I had never owned one before in my life. The conversation that broke everything open happened on a Sunday afternoon, 11 days after Patricia filed the property hold. Renee came over with Greg. They brought a pie, apple, from the bakery I liked. Greg set it on the counter and slapped me on the shoulder the way he always did and asked how the old bones were holding up. I said slowly. I let my hands shake a little when I poured the coffee. Renee watched me the way she had been watching me for months, calculating, measuring, but now I could see it clearly for what it was. After the pie, Greg said there was something they wanted to talk to me about. He said it gently, the way people say things gently when they have already decided what is going to happen, and the conversation is just a formality. He said they had been thinking about my situation. He said the house was a lot for one person to manage. He said they had found a wonderful place, a senior community with activities and on-site medical staff, very highly rated, only about 40 minutes away. Renee reached across the table and put her hand on mine. She said, "Dad, we just want you to be somewhere safe." The recorder in my pocket was running. I looked at her hand on mine. I looked at her face. I thought about Diane, about the Sunday mornings the three of us used to have at this exact table when Renee was small, about the way my wife used to hum to herself while she made pancakes. I thought about all of that, and then I set it down somewhere inside me where it would not interfere with what I needed to do. I said, "That sounds like something we should talk about with a lawyer present." Greg's smile did not move, but something behind his eyes did. Renee started to say something about how that was not necessary. This was just a family conversation. No need for anything formal. I told her Patricia's name. I told her Patricia had been my attorney for the past 6 weeks. I watched Renee's face go through several changes very quickly. Then I told her about the handwriting expert. Greg pushed back his chair and stood up. He said this was not what it looked like. He started talking fast, the way people talk when they are trying to build a version of events faster than the other person can dismantle it. Renee went very quiet. She looked at the table. She did not look at me. I reached into my shirt pocket and turned off the recorder. I told them to leave my house. The weeks after that were not simple. Nothing like this is ever simple. There were lawyers, and there were letters, and there were phone calls from Greg at hours he knew I would be awake. There was a message from Renee that I have not listened to more than once, and probably never will again. The forged power of attorney was formally declared invalid. Dr. Foss surrendered his license to practice pending the investigation. The property hold protected my house through all of it. Patricia told me I had grounds for a civil suit. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about my grandchildren, who are 9 and 11, and had nothing to do with any of this. I thought about what a long court case would cost in years and in energy and in whatever remained of the relationship between me and my daughter, which at that point was somewhere between nothing and something I could not yet name. I decided not to sue. That was my choice, and I will not defend it to anyone. What I did instead was draft a new will with Patricia and make sure every relevant legal document was airtight and witnessed by people I had chosen myself. I changed the locks. I changed my doctor. I went back to June's kitchen table and drank coffee and told her everything. And she sat across from me and did not say "I told you so" even once, which is one of the most generous things anyone has ever done for me. My house is still mine. I am still here. About 6 months after that Sunday afternoon, Renee called me from a different number. I almost did not pick up. I am glad I did. She was not calling to argue or to explain or to make me feel responsible for what had happened. She said Greg was gone, that the marriage had not survived what she had done and what she had let him talk her into doing. She said she did not expect me to forgive her. She said she was sorry and that she knew sorry was not enough and that she was going to spend however long it took trying to become someone her children and her father could trust. I did not tell her it was fine. It was not fine. But I told her I would call her next week And I did. I am not telling you this story because it ended perfectly. It did not. There is a version of my relationship with my daughter that will never come back. And I have made my peace with that the way you make peace with a scar. You know it is there. You stop pretending otherwise, and you find out what is still possible. What I am telling you this story for is the 6 weeks. The 6 weeks between the night I stopped taking those pills and the Sunday afternoon with the apple pie and the recorder in my shirt pocket. Because during those 6 weeks, while I was performing confusion for people who had decided I was already gone, I felt something that surprised me. I felt calm. Not the medicated calm of the capsules that were not what they claimed to be, but a real and considered calm that came from knowing exactly what was happening and having decided exactly what I was going to do about it. I have thought about that calm many times since. I think it came from the moment I stopped waiting for someone else to protect me and started doing it myself. If you are watching this, and something in what I just told you sounds familiar, a family member managing your medications, someone else speaking to your doctors, signatures on documents you do not remember signing, I want to say this clearly. Trust what your body knows. Trust the neighbor who comes and sits with you and asks how long you have been this tired. Find a lawyer you chose yourself and tell them everything. Not tomorrow. This week. The apple pie is still in my freezer. I have not thrown it away and I am not sure why. Maybe because it is good pie. From the bakery I have liked for 20 years, and I refuse to let any of this take that from me too. Where are you watching from tonight? And has there ever been a moment when you trusted someone completely and your gut was quietly telling you something different? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story stayed with you, please leave a like and subscribe to Father's Calm Revenge. There is more to come. I will see you in the next one.